Andrew does not want to see this matchup. I think going into this, you have to expect Alan to be the favourite, because he is playing 2 copies of Zamazenta V, and Andrew is playing a straight Eternatus list, which has very few answers to that card.
It's going to be very difficult. Let's head on over into the match then and see what Andrew can actually do. And you're right, Joe, it's going to be very difficult. That Zamazenta V has got an ability which basically means it can't be damaged by Pokemon VMAXs. Unfortunately, the Eternatus VMAX deck, unless you're playing some crazy techs, and unfortunately Andrew is not, you don't really have an answer to it. So you're talking about rushing prizes, you're talking about trying to boss's orders Pokemon off the bench if they're there, which they might well not be, or maybe some weird poison plays with Crobat or Galarian Wheezing or things of that nature.
Yeah, things do get a little bit rough. We are going to be following Alan's side, of course, who is going to be leading off with the Lucario and Melmetal Tag Team GX. Pretty much in a matchup like this, when both players have complete knowledge of the opponent's deck, Alan wants to put down less than 6 prize cards, unless some of those prize cards are Zamazenta Vs, because those are things that are super troublesome for Andrew. And if you're on Andrew's side, you're trying to rush down Alan before he gets his optimal board state.
Yeah, I mean, it really is that simple for Andrew. We need to see some aggressive plays, some faster plays, some maybe even some plays that we wouldn't necessarily see. It needs to be fill your bench, get your Eternatus, get your energy. Spiritomb is a viable attacker in this matchup. The problem is Spiritomb really doesn't do enough to KO a Zamazenta. It's going to be very easily KO'd by something like a Zamazenta. Maybe there's a route with multiple Spiritomb and things of that nature. But you see Andrew already, he's gone for the Eternatus, he's got the energy, he's going to attach to the Eternatus. Even though that Eternatus really struggles against Zamazenta, it's still your best option, and that's kind of where this matchup becomes hairy.
And so far there's only 3 draws from a Bird Keeper, and also a Lily's Pokédoll, which acts as a secondary basic Pokemon. So the hand isn't great so far for Alan. Let's see if he draws into much. Doesn't really. The Goggles is helpful. That pushes you up to 290 hit points on your Lucario and Melmetal. He may choose to hold it, though, because it then just makes his Zamazenta even more difficult to deal with. But Alan has no draw whatsoever. No Zacian, obviously no Zamazenta, which is the card he wants to load up all of his energies onto, and no supporters to draw with. So the window's open for Andrew right now.
Absolutely. We're asking a lot. I know we're asking for a lot. But energy, Eternatus VMAX, bunch more bench Pokemon, and the boss's orders, there is, and admittedly awkward, but there is a route to a KO here on that Lucario Melmetal for 3 prizes. It's only got 260 HP, it is lower than your average Pokemon Tag Team GX, and there are no, the Meta Goggles isn't there. There's nothing to actually protect it, so it's asking a lot, but it is in range. We could even see, you know, a couple of Galarian Zigzagoon here, meaning that you would actually need, you know, not quite a full bench. You could actually leave a bench space here.
Yeah, and we already do see the switch. I'm actually kind of surprised we didn't see the energy turn 1 onto this Eviltal, because it's an easy way to just deal with a Pokédoll without this huge wombo combo going on. Andrew's chasing the dream right now, but because he immediately attached to his Eternatus VMAX, you don't want to put that straight up into the active. You're not taking prizes for this KO, and the Lucario Melmetal is dangerous with even just 1 energy attached. So Andrew, by going aggressive with the Eternatus, has forced himself into a Marnie play here, and yeah, may not even be attacking at all this turn.
No, the combo is gone, and you definitely, like you said, there's no point leaving it in the active. 2 energy on a Lucario and Melmetal means that you can attack and get rid of all the energy, and that's not where you want to be. Good news, a tag call, it's not perfect, but we do have supporter routes here. We've got Guzma and Hala, so at least we're going to be able to establish something on this side of the board here.
Yeah, Alan actually plays 2 copies of Capture Energy, so this could be his first out into a Zamazenta, which is actually pretty huge. It's another turn where you're not attaching to the Zamazenta, but you don't mind 2 energies going on to Lucario Melmetal because it's just a good attack to have available. And this is just guaranteeing that, oh my goodness, he's prized both.
How has he prized both of them?
Oh, this was his first search. I mean, he had the Guzmahala, which was a search, but wow, we're going to have to see a different approach here. It's a, what is it, a 1 in 50 to try and actually prize both of a 2 of. So yeah, wow. At least he hits the Intrepid Sword. That's pretty
That's
good. 2 outs allows him this more aggressive path instead.
It does, but Zacian does not really match up well against an Eternatus V Max. It can't attack 2 turns in a row without going to the bench. It can't get a 1-hit KO, whereas Eternatus can keep attacking and keep KOing. And Andrew knows something is up here. There is absolutely no way whatsoever Alan does not get a Zamazenta there if there is a possibility of a Zamazenta. So Andrew, again, is very much going for the boss's orders here, but you've got to think it's actually that Zacian that is going to be face down. If he could get an energy onto a reserve Eternatus here, which it looks like he's going to be able to, it doesn't even really matter. Oh, onto a Crobat as it happens.
Yeah, it seems to be still prepping for a Zamazenta, more than likely. There is some argument to getting the Zacian first, because again, it's only 5 prizes that's been put onto Alan's board so far, and the draw 3 is obviously a big deal in a lot of situations. But yeah, just loading up this Crobat for now. It may mean another turn of not attacking. Yeah, just another Marnie from Andrew. He's waiting just to have boss's orders. He wants to get the value while he can and not waste attachments, even with Evil Tal onto this Pokedoll. But this doll has put so much work in already, as more Crushing Hammers coming down. It's going to hit heads on the Lucario Melmetal, which is pretty nice. Does give you the avenue to go Eternatus now if you want to. I still feel it's a little bit risky, even with the lower hand size that you've given Andrew. So yeah, just going to be a pass here. But this Pokedoll has stuck around 2 turns longer than I would have expected at the very least.
Absolutely, and we know it's not there at the moment, but Andrew would be very vulnerable to a Pokemon catcher here, because all Alan needs to do is take out a 2-prize Pokemon. If there's 2 Zamazenta in his 6 prizes and he's taking 2 prizes, that gives him a pretty good shot at getting a Zamazenta out of there. And I mean, that's got to be Alan's fault at this stage. It needs to be, look, let's just take some prizes, because I know there's only 5 prizes on the board. If I can get Zamazenta out, I still win the game. So, I mean, this is worst case scenario for Alan, but if he can just take a couple of prizes, he is going to be in a much better position.
Looks like we are going to be seeing the Guzmahala for exactly that purpose, getting an energy drop down. Looking for the capture. The coating is the only viable energy if he wants to use Zacian this turn. So he is going to goggle up onto the Lucario Melmetal. That keeps it out of range of any 1-hit KO boss plays with Eternatus. Also is going to establish the Cape of Toughness. Going to see the energy drop onto the Lucario and Melmetal by the looks of things. And probably just ending on Intrepid Sword with that attachment. Just get another freebie, which is nice.
You can't KO the Evil Tal. At this stage, Alan is in a really precarious position. He does not want to see that energy leave the field. You cannot potentially get, well, definitely give it up. We know that the KO's on the board. You cannot give up that Zacian or that Lucario and Melmetal just for potentially taking out an Evil Tal. It's not something that's really a viable option. So both players starting off being very cagey here, basically going, you know what, I'm just going to wait until I can take an optimal KO.
And finally we see it. Andrew has found his first copy of Boss's Orders. There is no GX attack yet from the Lucario and Melmetal, so the 270 is going to be enough for the KO here. So Eternatus coming in and swinging, taking the first 2 prizes straight away.
And this is really big, because what can Lucario and Melmetal realistically KO? We do have an energy on that benched Eternatus here, which is huge. Getting rid of all the energy on Eternatus, buying a couple of turns would be awesome. But now, we're probably going to see a GX attack, get rid of the energy on the Eternatus, but with an energy and a VMAX, Andrew can just do his thing again, and it might not work for the entire series, but certainly for this game, what looked like a very, very unfavourable matchup, and is on paper, really seems to be going Andrew's way here.
Yeah, I think we certainly will see the GX attack. Grabbing more draw certainly makes sense, but he wants to try and have Boss's Orders. That one Spiritomb is looking really, really tasty right now for the easy get-out-of-jail-free 1 prize, and then you hope that you hit a Zamazenta off of those, because you can't put any more Pokemon into play at this point, because then Andrew can simply go around your Zamazenta even when you do find it. So we will see the Full Metal Wall here, but currently no Boss's Orders available for Alan.
No, and with that combined with a lack of Tool Scrapper in Andrew's list, I don't think he actually plays any. That means that Lucario Melmetal is very much out of range. So essentially that gives Alan 2 turns. Alan has got 2 turns to find a Zamazenta to get something rolling. If he doesn't, and there we see the second energy, the Eternatus. Does he have a switch? He does. So like I said, absolutely just resetting it straight away, and I love this play because essentially this gives Alan 1 turn to try and make something happen, and if he doesn't, Lucario Malmoto goes down, and that really will be the game at this stage.
What an incredible Marnie. Gets him into that switch out. And, we see a tag call. I don't think that's much different from a Bird Keeper, but it thins an additional 2 cards. I still think you take the draw here because you're going towards Boss's Orders. It looks like Alan even prized 2 copies of his Boss's Orders, so some of the worst prizes possible for him. 2 Zamazenta and 2 of his 4 Boss's Orders to help you get prize cards in the first place. The Mallow doesn't change math at all, really. You're still getting finished off. So you will just take those additional cards. He does draw into Boss's Orders, which is a helpful little card here. You may even want to hold on to this Capture Energy. You want to have these attachments for an eventual Zamazenta here.
Yeah.
But you're hoping that the Pokédoll gives you time.
Yeah, and if he gets another Pokemon out, and it looks like he's going for it, so that's enough prizes now. Unfortunately, that means... And that is out of 1-hit KO range because of the Full Metal Wall. And he gets the Intrepid Sword from it, but... Now that Zamazenta might not even make a difference if it does come out, which is a huge if at this stage, because, frankly, there are now enough prizes for Andrew to win the game.
It depends on just how many Boss's Orders are remaining for Andrew. It may be a hedge from Alan saying that you can use 1 more Boss's Orders on this Lucario Melmetal, but then if you use your 4th Boss's Orders on the Zacian, it won't be 1-hit KO'd, and I can just move out of it again. So I think that's the reason why we see it coming down now post-GX attack, because it can actually take 1 hit. I have to imagine that there's going to be a Boss's Orders play onto a Spiritomb here. It surely is the best option.
I mean, you want a cheeky look at your prizes, because Alan's game plan isn't really like I'm rushing to 6 prizes. Alan's game plan is come on Zamazenta. That's pretty much all you're looking for here. So taking that cheeky KO, trying to see one of your prizes, I think you're right. It's got to be the way to go.
I think because he's already commit a Metal Saucer and an Energy Drop onto this Zacian, potentially he's not going to go for this sort of line. He's actually going to try and weave in the Zacian at some point, and was that only 1 Boss's Orders played so far for Andrew? It must be more. We are going to see the Boss's Orders regardless. It may just not be a stacked view of the cards in the discard pile, but we are going to see the Steel Fist is going to get a KO. 33% to try and get that Zamazenta V out of the prizes.
It's pretty huge. This is such a big draw. It's a Metal Energy. That is not what he wanted, and there's no other... Well, I suppose attach an energy... No, because it's going down. He can get a KO with a Zacian, but I'm trying to think it through, and I'm second-guessing myself here, because it's so difficult. This is a super favourable matchup with Zamazenta, and a super difficult matchup without it.
So here's the plan. The Zacian comes in... Oh, sorry, you use your dolls for a couple of turns. I'll admit it's not a great plan. You reset stamp your doll. You Cynthia Caitlyn, try and get your Boss's Orders back. You try and Boss's Orders up the Crobat for 2 additional prize cards, and then hope that the stamps give you enough time. Oh, it's a hard grasp at this point.
There's just no good options at this stage. It's so difficult. This is the opposite of what you want. I mean, the only good news for Alan at this stage is he's got to be thinking, look, it can't happen 2 out of 3 games.
True.
I mean, it can. We've all been there. If you played enough games, you have been there at some point. But it looks like we're going to see Bird Keeper switching into a doll, drawing a few extra cards.
Yeah, you see, I really prefer promoting a doll to begin with, and then you Cynthia Caitlyn, because then you guarantee that Boss's Orders, and he only has 1 remaining in his deck here. So I actually much prefer just the Cynthia Caitlyn the previous turn, and he doesn't draw into that Boss's Orders, so he's just going to be feeding more prize cards here. Didn't play a reset stamp either. I feel like when you have 2 in your hand, it's a decent time to fire 1 off, because if you get bossed 2 times in a row here, you do lose the game.
There are 3 Boss's Orders in Andrew's deck in total. He plays 3 Boss's Orders, doesn't play Pow Pad or any of those cards that can get it back. So if there is only 1 that's been played, then that will give him enough to get a 2-hit KO on a Zacian.
So far just a Marnie, though. So he will be going through a Lily's Pokédoll this turn. We are going to see a communication as well. He could continue to dig with Crobat if he wishes. Does make him a little vulnerable to reset stamps at this stage, but him continually marnying Alan's hand has really been helpful this entire series.
Really has. There goes the Pokédoll. And no one really likes KOing a Pokédoll. You don't get any prizes for it. But it's more just, look, everyone I KO, it isn't an Excadrill deck, right? It ain't coming back. So it's just sooner or later they'll run out and then I can start doing. He tops the boss's orders!
Okay, here we go. Boss's orders on Crobat for 2 prize cards. You remove your opponent's only Zamazenta answer remaining, realistically, because the Evil Tiles won't be getting the job done. You take 2 prizes, you tank a hit, and you're hoping that you can just avoid Boss's orders for a long enough time to build up Zamazenta to get you over the line. There's
yes!
One.
Okay. You really were expecting, you know, drawing 2 out of 5, you did expect to hit one there, so Alan finally has access to that Zamazenta. There are 2 Metal Saucer in hand and 2 energy in the discard, so we can see a Zamazenta just be played, get free energy on, and be attacking next turn. That is going to go straight away into an attacking position, which is, you know, quite nice.
Yeah, and he's trying to turn 2 clock Andrew at this point. He says you have to have boss over these next 2 turns, so that's really the play that we're seeing at this point. Finally grabbing that Zamazenta, giving him an out. But Andrew, all he needs to do is swing into this active once and then have boss's orders. So really, realistically, with the hand size that Andrew's now sat at, with only 1 boss's orders played, you have to think that Alan needs to find a reset stamp.
Yeah, and it's not there. I mean, it's going to... Well, you're going to have to play Birdkeeper to switch and then hope you hit the reset stamp off one of those 3. It's not the best plan I've ever heard, but it's the best one that's available given the cards in Alan's hand.
Wow.
And we do see it!
That's
Maybe
insane.
it was the best plan ever.
That's insane. Now Andrew has to get boss's orders from a 2 out of 12, basically. Suddenly, this 2-turn clock... I mean, obviously, Andrew can retreat this Eternatus once it takes a hit, so you probably should still play these tag calls just to thin your outs, because now it's actually Alan that needs to use boss's orders.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Zamazenta, you're talking about a free hit KO. It's great at blocking as an attacker. You know, it's blocking VMAXs. You're using it against VMAXs. Well, VMAXs start at 300 hit points, so you're always free hit KOing unless you're somehow playing it in... Oh, no!
That's brutal. And a Crobat. What are the chances? What an awful reset stamp that was.
That could not have been worse.
Wow. I mean, Alan, tough rubber the green there. I think that's the only real way you can describe that game. Initially, you have the 1 in 50 of both Zamazentas being prized. Then you don't take it off your first prize. You finally find it and get yourself still in a position where you can win the game with a reset stamp to 1, and then your opponent still rips the boss's orders and the Crobat on top. That is salt in the wound, I say.
We have seen some fortunate draws from some of the players during the broadcast today. There have been... But, you know, these players, they're doing the right thing. You know, we've seen deck thinning from the players. It's the way they build the deck. It's those extra 1 or 2 copies. Maybe if he's playing 2 copies rather than 3, maybe he doesn't grab the boss's orders. It's deck construction. It's how you play during the game. There is obviously an element of luck coming in there. I think if you're Alan, the only saving grace here is, look, that was the actual worst case scenario. Both Zamazenta prize, and I reset stamped him, and he still hit the perfect draw off of it. I mean, there's so much. And he even had a really bad opening hand to begin with. His opening hand was not good for a couple of turns. And you don't get this deep into the tournament unless your deck works. So it's got to go better next time, right, Joe?
Yeah, and actually I still have him favoured to win this series, realistically. We just know that the odds were stacked against him in exactly this one game. It has to be an absurd turn of events to do that one more time. So going into the second game, I still put him ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Let's flick straight to game 2 and see if Andrew can continue this rather impressive run of luck, I think is fair to say. Because you're right. I mean, this is when you bring in the Zamazenta with Eternatus, and there isn't really a great counter that Eternatus decks can naturally build in. So it is... Oh, and it's in the opening hand as well. This looks very, very different.
All right, this is a huge relief. We know that Plan A can actually happen this game. He's even fine to put all of these Pokemon into play because you know that it's, you know, keeping you drawing cards throughout the entire time, the Zacian, and you know that the Lucario Melmetal can still be handy for you. So yeah, you can still go for the early game Lucario Melmetal game plan, remove some energies from the opponent, put pressure on the opponent's active, and yeah, you can still draw these cards knowing that this isn't a liability prize-wise later down the line.
That's a nice hit. 2 energy off the Intrepid Sword there, which is only 1 away from actually being able to use Brave Blade. So, actually, with a switch next turn, we could see a turn 2 KO on that Eternatus. No, we couldn't.
Crushing Hammer, keeping Andrew a little bit safer here. Does choose that bench to Zacian. Obviously, that would be a threat. Otherwise, force the Metal Saucer out of the opponent. Also see a switch into the Evil Tal, and we are going to see the Derail this game doing 30 and also removing the Coating Metal Energy, a small upside on that Evil Tal there. And you get a little 30 poke as well, which is relevant because we've seen that sometimes the GX attack or the goggles can keep this Luke Metal out of range. So it's still setting up reasonable math for later turns.
Yeah, that was really nice. I mean, there was a potential of that KO, but the Crushing Hammer, then you see the switch into the Evil Tau, then the Evil Tau gets rid of the energy just for good measure. I mean, that was about as good a turn as you could hope. But things are very, very different in this game. Andrew knows that he got very fortunate last game. He knows that those Zamazenta are the route to victory. And Andrew has got to have an answer to that Zamazenta, whether it's Spiritomb, whether it's Crobat, whether it's some combination of them, whether it's Evil Tau maybe, probably not. He needs some way to KO that Zamazenta because there aren't enough prizes and Alan is just not going to bench anything else unless he is absolutely forced to.
Yeah, it could be another Zamazenta, just to have both threats down. I think that's always fine. And we are actually going to see the capture energy for this. Now, both are here, both hurdles to get over. You can also play down the Lily's Pokédoll, just thinning, really. You can also use the Power Plant if he wishes, just to play around Marnie as much as possible. But instead, he's just going to end on the Intrepid Sword. And yeah, now he has all the time in the world. He can just slowly attach up to Zamazentas and just be freely announcing his attacks, is more or less the game plan at this stage.
Yeah, it's exactly where he wants to be. And, you know, this is a very, very favourable matchup. We got Evil Tau just poking for 30. And actually, it looks like Andrew has not got exactly what he wanted. Didn't even attach an energy last turn. So his only energy is on that Evil Tau. That's not ideal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a role reversal by the looks of things. We are going to see the Cynthia Caitlyn remove the Power Plant. He's going to grab back that Guzman Hala. And we are going to see 3 additional cards here. Boss's Orders potential options now, but he's just going to keep loading up that Zamazenta. Don't see any reason not to. He can also end on the Intrepid Sword again. Trying to set up both threats is always a good deal. He's got some Saucers now. I think there is one in the discard pile thanks to Crushing Hammer. So, yeah, going to be launching attacks as of next turn, and Andrew's the one who's really in the hot seat and not drawing much.
And this is a much, much slower version of a Zacian deck. This isn't the use Altered Creation and smash ADP variant. This is very much the, I mean, I've got Metal Saucer, but I can manually attach. Now, that heads is going to make things slightly more awkward, but we know that there are actually 2 Metal Saucer in hand, so it's going to be mostly irrelevant. And it is just get your Pokemon going and fine, your free hit KOing, but it doesn't really matter because, like, you know, Andrew's getting his Spiritomb, he's getting his Crobat. Are any of them realistically going to be able to take out a pair of Zamazenta?
Well, not when there's a Boss's Orders play on the table as well. It could be Saucer, attach, switch, Boss's Orders, and deal with Spiritomb straight out the gate. That's the one-of copy that Andrew plays intentionally for this matchup, realistically. And that's going to get denied immediately by Alan here.
Yeah, this is such a good... I mean, he's got so many cards in hand from all those Intrepid Swords. We're going to see Metal Saucer. We're going to see an attachment for the turn. There's a Bird Keeper to switch into it and draw more. Means taking a KO on the Evil Tau, not the Spiritomb. And there's another Metal Saucer he can play if he wishes here, just to start getting his board a bit more. And there we go. There it comes down. Onto Lucario and Melmetal, just going, you know what? If you do get something rolling with a bit too much energy, I got you covered.
Yeah, and seeing as though Andrew has been, well, he got the Crobat, but still didn't draw into any useful cards. Essentially, didn't draw any supporter or any energy cards. So just taking the energy off the board, making Andrew have it, and seeing as though there's only been one build spite so far, the Spiritomb's not yet a threat. So Andrew does have another Crobat here, can keep topping up his hand, but you know, he's behind on tempo, which is one of the things you try and use to leverage this sort of matchup. And he's running out of threats as well, so things are really turning pretty dicey for him.
And I mean, he's hitting well on Crushing Hammer. I will say he's hitting very well on those Crushing Hammers.
And he can also derail off a special energy here. So the combination buys him a turn and an extra build spite. So that's not too shabby.
No, and this is really a case of a player in a bad matchup doing everything he can. Derail doesn't do any damage, but now there's just not the energy on the board. I mean, I don't see any energy switch in hand. A bunch of Metal Swords have already hit the discard. We've got a switch, but no real attacker to go into. So it seems like it's just manual attachment, Intrepid Sword.
Yeah, seems pretty safe to me. I mean, you're still not under any pressure. The Derail is doing 0 damage, and Clutch would be doing 30, so you're not worried about any of this stuff. You can go ahead and just Intrepid Sword, gain some more cards here, and yeah, you're not worried about a thing, really.
No, this is going pretty gosh darn well. This is what Alan is absolutely looking for. It is just Zamazenta in the active, and you know what? It might take a few moments, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm going to see some quick balls now. Probably just more Crobat for more draw by the looks of things. Not much else going on right now. Gonna grab another Eternatus, so may even be out of Crobats or has a follow-up one in hand.
Yeah, it does have a quick ball.
Yeah, just for Crobat draws by the looks of things.
Oh, there we go. There's another Crobat. Yeah. It's just so... I mean, he's not even keeping up with energy. Okay, so an Energy Spinner is at least going to get an energy attachment.
That's, yeah, he can get a drop down. I'm not even sure where he puts it at this stage. I mean, you have to anticipate with the hand size that Alan's at that, you know, they can pick off anything they want to. They haven't used Boss's Orders just yet, but we are going to see the attachment to the Crobat. It at least forces, you know, Zacian plays. And we actually do see a Marnie, so going to finally keep that hand size in check. Maybe want to retreat out of this Yveltal to try and buy turns and keep the attachment around. Maybe even try and clutch some other cards later on. We do see more build Spite to try and make the Spiritomb a threat, but, you know, it's still really hopeful at this stage.
It really is. And the thing is, you know, you've got the metal goggles on there. You've got the threat of a full metal wall. So, I mean, that brings Spiritomb's damage cap down considerably. And realistically, Spiritomb's like a one-shot deal. You get to attack of it once, but Zamazenta will make quick work of it. And that's the other thing, you know, these things like Yveltal and Spiritomb, which in theory are very good options to try and take down a Zamazenta, actually, they're not that great, because they do a tiny bit of damage and then get one shot right back. And Alan doesn't really care where the prizes come from. The only thing Alan cares about in this matchup is, please don't KO my Zamazenta.
Yeah, and on top of that, there's even things like Mallow and Lana, which can heal off the chip damage that you try and do with some of these one prizes. So, yeah, overall, pretty awkward. We are going to see, actually, the tag call for Mallow Lana right now. Probably just holding it for a future turn. He can just attach and smack into this Eternatus if he wants to. I feel like it's reasonable. You don't really need too many cards. You're not afraid of anything, I don't think, on Andrew's side. I would just take the damage here over the card draw, but both seem, honestly, reasonable options, because you can just see Andrew retreating out of this Eternatus, and you're still a couple of shots away from dealing with it. So, either way is fine here. I don't mind putting damage into play. You don't need anything else in your hand right now. You've got Zamazenta raring to go, and your opponent's not throwing up any real hurdles for you.
No, I mean, it would be nice to have a second Zamazenta ready to go, but that is pretty much the definition of greed in a matchup like this, because, you know, it's so difficult for Andrew to try and take it down. He is working on another Spiritomb, but, you know, Alan, he's got this beautiful thing here where, like, I can finish off the Eternatus, maybe I get the Spiritomb, there's an Yveltal I can get, maybe I free hit KO an Eternatus VMAX if I'm feeling a little bit feisty. There is, or there are now, I should say, 2 energy on that Crobat V, so it's not a Pokemon, it's a Pokemon we see all the time in almost every deck for the draw. We might see the fabled Crobat V attack coming in soon.
Yeah, no switch out, unfortunately, for Andrew, so he will be sacrificing the prize cards as he goes. Alan has drawn back into Tackle, which is an out to Mallow Lana, which makes the Crobat play feel very sad. He may even want to hold on to all of these cards. There's only been 2 Marnies played so far, and you don't really want to... Possibly you could play the Metal Saucer, but it's actually reasonable putting it onto Zacian at this point, so you instant answer the Crobat. So holding everything seems reasonable to me here. Just take the prizes while they're here.
Yeah, I agree with that one entirely. I do like having a Zacian there, because the general rule of this kind of deck is almost anything that can deal with a Zamazenta is probably not one-hit KOing, but is very easily answered by Zacian. So essentially you have it there and you're like, oh, you've kind of like done a bit of damage. Mallow and Lana to heal up, KO with Zacian. And even if you give up the Zacian, it doesn't matter. You know, you look at Alan's board and you go, right, I don't care if the Lucario and Melmetal gets KO'd. And I don't care if Zacian gets KO'd. That's 5 prizes. You need more. The only one he cares about being KO'd is Zamazenta. So I really just love his position here because there is nothing Andrew can use to one-hit KO a Zamazenta. And like you say, yes, that Crobat can come and do a little bit of damage and poison and all of that, but Zacian will make it go away.
And we are going to see finally the Eternatus VMAX starting to get powered up. Also, we're going to see a Galarian Zigzagoon come down. Could just be to open up the hand a little bit more here. Could also just be to damage ping something. He only plays a couple of the Galarian Zigzagoon, so you can't even deal with anything like Lily's Pokédoll too easily. But it is just going to be the Professor's research here. Getting rid of a few excess Pokemon. Keeping that board space open for potentially that last Crobat if he wants to. And he is going to put that 5th damage counter onto Spiritomb. So it's at its maximum capacity here. 4 damage, still nowhere near enough to deal with the Zamazenta, of course. But it does mean that this Crobat is putting some pressure on. We are going to see the 40 and the Poison come in, starting to rack up. And currently, Alan can't deal with this because he doesn't actually have the energy to attack with. He could Saucer to his Lucario and Melmetal if he wanted to. But we are going to see the boss's orders instead. Just deal with that Spiritomb. That gives you more time.
I like this. I mean, there is a small possibility that what Andrew is actually trying to do is maybe 2-hit KO the benched Zamazenta, you know, boss's orders it active, and then kind of take a 2-hit KO, hoping that Alan doesn't have a switch in the meantime, and then maybe that is a route to take all 6 of those prizes, essentially ignore the one in the active that's got all the energy on, and just go after the one on the bench, hope for a stall. Again, we're talking about these kind of minor plays. It's not your real preferred way of winning going into the matchup, but it's about looking at an unfavorable matchup and just trying to find anything you can that's going to give you that slight little chance of pulling it out.
Yeah, the path here is getting narrower and narrower, unfortunately, for Andrew. This is the game that we all expected coming into this matchup, realistically. Zamazenta just so pesky to deal with for these Eternatus VMAX decks. And, you know, you're hitting for 40 at a time. Poison trying to, you know, tick over some damage, but here it all gets wiped with the Mallow and Lana play. It's the last thing you want to see in this spot if you are Andrew. And, you know, Alan can go straight back in to attack you. He could just go into a Lily's Pokédoll if he wants to. All the options are on his side, and he's just churning through the deck, really. And, yeah, slowly getting there with the 130 pressure is easily enough right now.
And this is what's so horrible about playing against this deck. Not only have you got Zamazenta, which is blocking VMAXs, that alone is very difficult. But then you build in the full Metal Wall and the Metal Goggles, which, if they're both in play, you're taking 60 less damage every time you're attacked. Then you build in Mallow and Lana, which will heal 120 of that damage off. So you got a Pokemon which is blocking your best attackers. It's really hard to one-hit KO with your backup attackers. And then you've got all of this damage reduction and healing as well. You know, we just saw basically completely heal, come back in the active, and then do 130 damage to that Crobat, which incidentally is now 1 hit away from the game being over.
Yeah, he's basically set himself up for a 2-turn win because the Cynthia Caitlyn just guarantees back boss's orders. You can take a few hits easily now that you've healed up. These Crobats are doing tiny bits of chip damage at this point. The second Crobat's ready to rumble, but we know that Alan can just smack into this one as well, and then both of them basically can't enter the active position again. If he does just draw into an energy card off the Cynthia and Caitlyn as well, you can take the knockout with Zacian. The boss's orders here means that you need more than just Saucer energy attachment. You also need to have another switch out. So the Zacian's not yet ready to win the game.
No, it's close. I was looking at that as well. I was like, oh, top decks and energy, but unfortunately that boss's orders has somewhat ruined things. So we do see that boss's orders coming back, which will guarantee the win next turn. There was an energy, so that boss's orders did, you know, give a stay for just that one turn, but I really don't think in the end this is going to be terribly relevant. We got boss's orders onto that Crobat next turn, and that Zamazenta, It can get KO'd, it can retreat. It doesn't really matter at this stage. Andrew is too far away from winning the game. We do see the retreat this turn, and looks like just attacking into the Crobat. Hopefully, Andrew's not going to have... Oh, he doesn't have another boss's orders, and he just concedes.
Yeah, retreat and smack just seem to be good enough there. Then the Crobats are no longer usable, which means he basically has nothing usable to get over the Zamazenta V. Such an annoying card for the Eternatus player, and, you know, that's the only real time where you see the downside of Eternatus VMAX, where you're only allowed to use Dark Pokemon, so you don't have the easy options to answer Zamazenta, you know? You're limited to your Crobats, you're limited to Spiritombs and Eviltals and Hoopers and those sorts of Pokemon, and they just don't get the job done against this tanking archetype that's built towards healing a bunch of damage, reducing a bunch of damage, and just slowly chipping away, which is exactly what happened in that second game.
Yeah, Eternatus, like you say, it just does not have a good answer. It's very, very sad for the Eternatus player. I mean, that game, maybe it's a little bit different, but we didn't see that explosive start from Eternatus. If we see, you know, Eternatus going first and then getting that turn 2 attack, maybe we see, you know, 2 quick KOs in succession, forcing another non-Zamazenta Pokemon, or, you know, giving you 6 prizes of leeway to try and chip away and take out a Zamazenta. It's not a great route to victory, but it is at least an option. When Eternatus has a fairly slow start and Zamazenta hits the field, I think we're pretty much always going to see a game like we just saw.
Yeah, Alan was able to just use Intrepid Sword way too much, built a really robust hand, which then let him have a really robust board state. So the only hope really for Andrew is that this deck isn't conventional in its draw engine. It's slow. It's drawing 3 cards a turn with Cynthia Caitlyn, ending your turn on Intrepid Swords. That's the only way you gain hand advantage. You don't have the crazy Crobat Dedenne research turns where you just draw so much. This deck is very methodical, very slow, so sometimes you have those 7 cards that just don't get you anywhere, and you're left with 1 or 2 stranded Pokemon that aren't Zamazenta, and that's where Andrew can capitalize.
No, absolutely. That is the way it goes. Well, let's head on into Game 3 now and see which of these players is going to emerge victorious. Obviously, as we've seen in the first 2 games, a heavy favourite Alan is going into this game, having that Zamazenta, which really is like a silver bullet to pretty much Andrew's only good attacker. But it's not completely hopeless for Andrew. Has won 1 game, admittedly in very strange circumstances. And there is, you know, he gets to go first this game. There is a chance of just, I am going to rush and win.
Yeah, and we just see the Zacian V start. That's something you can hit into turn 2. Andrew does drop the Darkness Energy. That's all he needs. So we see, yeah, no draw outs at all. Zacian's vulnerable here. Coating Metal Energy going on. Intrepid Sword, obviously you can't put down any Pokemon that you draw. Here's Andrew's window.
The donk is on. When we say donk, we mean taking out your opponent's only Pokemon on like your first or second turn of the game. This is something Andrew is looking to do. Basically trying to steal a win really early on. And Andrew has to go hyper aggressive here. This has to be Andrew. Now he needs a fair bit. He needs an Eternatus V Max. He needs a second energy. And I believe he needs a full bench here. Or he needs a couple of Galarian Zigzagoon, and then I think he can leave 1 bench space. It's asking a lot.
Yeah,
but
and
he can win the game.
Even the Zigzagoons are shut off because of the goggles as well.
Oh, of course they are. My apologies. So it is going to be a full bench needed. And he's got Crobat, he can use 1 of those. He's got a supporter card. If Andrew can get an energy and fill his bench, he will be able to steal what should be a very unfavourable matchup with a 2-1 score.
And if he can't, there's a Capture Energy raring to go on Alan's side. So we are going to see the switch here. Can just use it freely because there's free retreat on the Eviltal. So no reason to not play this. Even if you are just using a supporter here. Crobatting just for damage because he's already used his first Crobat to draw himself some cards. Are there any supporters coming in here? I feel like there has to be. Otherwise he, yeah. So chose not to spinner. I'm surprised there's no spinner just to remove an energy here. Because you want to just draw into these Pokemon and slam them all down immediately. Oh, here they come.
6.
No. Surely not.
Might have run out of steam. 2 Pokemon away from getting the KO on Zacian here, which is absolutely terrible. And we know what's going to happen. If there is no KO here, Alan is going to capture energy as fast as he possibly can, go and search out that Zamazenta, and then the matchup will change so much in a heartbeat. We do see the Dread End. Were it not for the metal goggles, that actually would have been a KO because of the extra 30 damage and for the Galarian Zigzagoon. But that is a moot point, ladies and gentlemen. Oh,
Zacian
so
staying.
close.
We get the Bird Keeper, no additional Pokemon, so it has to be Capture Energy. But that's a Zamazenta. That's Breathing Room. That's everything you want if you're Alan.
I mean, yeah, it's all he really needs here. Yes, he'd love to get some energy on and all of that. Oh, they're not prized. They are both in the deck. And this game just became so much more difficult. And Andrew's just sitting there thinking, if he didn't have goggles, or if I had 2 more Pokemon. But unfortunately, did not happen.
Yeah, that's really rough for him. He didn't even build Spite last turn. He was committing to the hit and hope strategy of the Eternatus over 2 turns. We do see a Quick Ball now for a second Crobat, and Evil Towel comes down, so looks like he was literally just 1 Pokemon away, because Quick Ball and already had the other Evil Towel in hand, or vice versa. So yeah, he was super close.
And you got to think, maybe if he uses that Energy Spinner, there's 1 fewer energy. Maybe he draws into another Pokemon that could have ended up being the difference. It can be that close when you get to these big games. So the dog does go down, but Andrew's now... In any other matchup, Andrew's going, look how well my deck set up. Because he'd have the second energy on the second Eternatus V Max. But that's not how this game is going. And it's hard to see it looks like we are just heading to a game which looks very similar to game 2 here.
Yeah, we almost saw the attachment of the coating metal energy onto the Zacian, and that surprises me. I feel like, obviously, there's already a capture energy attached to Zacian, which doesn't help you at all, because it can't fulfill the Brave Blade attack. It can be used for retreating if you really would like to, but I feel like you need to be putting your basic energies onto Zamazenta, really. That's my main priority. Surprising to see the capture coming onto the Lucario Melmetal. It does let you grab another Zamazenta, I guess. But I just want to see going aggressive with Zamazenta, to be honest. You've got them into play. Start using them it's a good strategy. It worked last time.
It did work pretty well in game 2. I mean, there is always the argument that in games like this, look, you've got your Metal Saucer, so at some point in the future, you're going to be attaching, Metal Saucering, all of that, so it looks like we're actually seeing the quite rare single energy full metal wall. Means it does not remove the energy from Eternatus, you just get that protection on all of your Pokemon. Of course, that's enough, because Eternatus is maxing out at 270 damage, now needs to do 290, and there's no bench space for Galarian Zigzagoon to do the extra 20.
So now that we have seen that GX attack, the Zamazenta are even more awkward to deal with. So now we'll start seeing the energy drops onto these Zamazentas. The only thing you want to be careful of is not using your special energies, because they can be derailed off. We are going to see the Tackle here, grabbing that other Lucario Melmetal and Guzmahala, just taking them out of the pool to draw into. Going to see the Cynthia Caitlyn getting rid of Tool Scrapper. That's not a helpful card. Going to grab back Bird Keeper, just growing that hand size once again. We do start seeing Boss's Orders. These are important cards, so you can be proactive into the Spiritomb, proactive into these Crobats. We are seeing the Switch card here, and we're actually seeing the energy up into the active. Kind of surprising for me, because it's almost like you're baiting the Crobat into the active position from the opponent here.
Yeah, I was thinking pretty much the exact same thing, 1 to block, 1 to build up on the bench and come in as an attacker later. But you've always got stuff like Mallow and Lana to heal off, there's plenty of switching cards, and it must be quite sad for Andrew here, because he's looking at the field and he's like, well, there's 5 super easy prizes that I can take with Spiritomb or whoever at this stage, and actually, it doesn't really matter. We see Spiritomb come active, we see the Marnie, and it looks like Andrew is going to basically try and kind of poke Zamazenta a few times and see if it falls over. Combined with a Marnie, maybe? But we're talking about kind of a free hit KO here.
Yeah, I mean, he was hoping really off the Marnie to find more Crushing Hammers. I think that's the main thing he was looking for here. But yeah, this small hit and hope strategy, not the worst. You can attach to the Lucario Melmetal to try and have an instant response to the Spiritomb. There are no energies currently in the discard pile that are usable, so you can't just pay retreat and use Lucario and Melmetal, unfortunately. You can attach active and just Intrepid Sword and re-establish that hand. So I think ultimately it's going to be fine. Even draws into a tag call now, which is actually really helpful also.
It is, but I'm kind of digging where Andrew's at right now, because now this Spiritomb is going to put that Zamazenta into legitimate could be KO territory. Then maybe finish it off with something like an Evil Talent or another Spiritomb or whatever next turn. The problem is we can see the tag call in Alan's hand, and I would be very surprised if we didn't see a Mallow and Lana coming down next turn.
Yeah, it absolutely certainly will be that card coming down next turn, because you can just go straight into your Lucario Melmetal attached for turn and deal with this heavily damaged Spiritomb. And like we said, these are sacrificial prizes. You don't mind that the Lucario Melmetal is super heavily damaged. You can allow Andrew those cards. That's not a problem for you. So we are going to see the tag call. He can go ahead and thin the second Lucario Melmetal out of the deck. I think I would always take that over the Guzma here, just because you know you never ever use that card. Regardless, it's going to be discard fodder no matter what. And he could also pay retreat and attack with the Zamazenta that's almost ready to go. But I do really like using the Steel Fist here with the Lucario Melmetal.
Yeah, I like this a lot. You take the prize, you KO the Spiritomb, and you're going to be giving up that free prize Pokemon. And like we said, it just does not matter. So you go ahead, you take out one of your opponent's options, and Andrew was close. There's another game similar to this one where Alan doesn't have access to the Mallow and Lana, and Andrew is able to sneak a KO onto that Zamazenta, and at that point it is on. He can go after those other 5 prizes, and the game looks drastically different. But he had the Mallow and Lana, so that's not this game.
We are going to see... Keeping that Guzma means he can attack this turn just by searching out a Coating Metal Energy for Zamazenta, so he can begin to pressurize the opponent. Also, now has Metal Source alive, only 1 target right now, but still going to help that sort of resurrection pool of getting back those energies to build up secondary Zamazenta. Seeming pretty decent for him right now.
Yeah, it's going alright.
Some awkward discards here. You don't really like getting rid of Boss's Orders, but feels like you have to. There's still so many Crushing Hammers in Andrew's deck, only 1 played so far, that you want to safeguard against those and keep the sources around, I'd imagine. And you can always Cynthia Caitlin back Boss's Orders, so I feel like you should probably... I mean, the Lucario Melmetal always gets discarded. It's whether you want to get rid of Boss's Orders or the Sorcerer. I feel like Boss is probably the worst card, yeah. Yeah,
I agree with you. It's recoverable, and it's not doing anything for you right now. Whereas that Metal Saucer, or in the next turn or 2, whereas that Metal Saucer absolutely can. And at the end of the day, unless you actually deck out, Zamazenta really can just hit everything and then come round to KOs in like 20 turns' time. You'd rather not, that game would go on a while, but you don't really care. As long as you're not having that Zamazenta KO'd, you can attack as often as you like into as many different Pokemon as you like, and it doesn't matter if it's taking a while to get those KOs.
Here comes the Venomous Fang hit. The only sort of awkward thing for Alan right now is that he has no draw in his hand. He may even take a turn to Intrepid Sword here, because if you let the poison tick over too much and the Crobat do too much work, you're actually in a little bit of trouble. I do like hitting the Crobat. It makes some sense, but if ever the Zamazenta is actually dealt with, you're terrified.
Oh, yeah. If that Zamazenta goes down, I think Andrew becomes a favourite in this game easily. So that's got to be your number 1 priority. Protect the Zamazenta. So we do see a Boss's Orders.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this. They can easily just retreat back out if you bring up either of these. It's not too much work for them. This feels like a wasted Boss's Orders to me. Unless he's just trying to draw more cards to find Malolana and buy himself turns. It feels like you either want to hit the Crobat or just hold the Boss's Orders so you can shorten your win condition later. He does draw into Tag Call, though. That's a really big deal.
Yeah, I mean, assuming Cynthia and Caitlin and Mallow and Lana are in his deck, they are basically the two cards he's going to be looking for in the near future, unless he can just draw into Boss normally. So, I like this. I mean, like you say, it's protect Zamazenta. So you've got that Mallow and Lana potentially now. You can heal up the Zamazenta. It's going to come back to your turn with probably some damage on if Andrew gets an attack. No, so actually that is the perfect amount of damage to just heal off with Mallow and Lana. And oh look, there is a Boss's Orders ready to go in the future as well.
And an easy discard here now. He can get rid of the backup Zacian. You certainly don't need that card. The Metal Goggles as well, because no more Pokemon are hitting the board. Those are the easy 2 discards. You're never going to use those. So you just toss those two, you go into your doll and retreat out. Pretty simple stuff. Not retreat out. You can reset your doll to the bottom, I should say, and now you can just start poking. Or you can go into your other Zamazenta and just chill again.
Yeah.
Intrepid Sword. Yeah, seems decent.
Not a problem. Alan is not really under any time pressure here at all. Like I say, unless it looks like he might actually start decking out, he can take his time. He's got 5 prizes left to take, but the combinations are near endless. There is an Eternatus, which is, 1 energy on its Ashen away from being KO'd. How is he doing for Boss's Orders? Because there is a potential here to just Boss's Orders, KO with a Zamazenta, and then just take out that Eternatus with Ashen, and that would be the game.
Yeah, I think he plays a full complement of 4, so still 2 remaining available to him. So he can just start swinging into these guys, force Andrew to have the switch outs, and just, churn through this guy while it's still here. Make Andrew make the decisions, and you can save those Boss's Orders for later.
Yeah, you don't, like I say, there is an aggressive route to winning in a couple of turns, but you're not really under any pressure to actually do it. Now, we do see a Boss's Orders coming down to go after that Zacian. That was a better attacker. It was always going to go down at some point, so Andrew just getting rid of something that could have, finished off the Eternatus this turn rather than next turn. Unlikely to make much of a difference, honestly, in the game as a whole. Now, this does allow him to be reset stamped down to a 1-card hand, but Andrew at this stage needs to KO a Zamazenta, and it is really that simple. If he KOs the Zamazenta, that will be the game over. Doesn't need any other KOs, but we're still at that stage we've been at all game, where you look at the board and you're like, alright, what's going to KO a Zamazenta?
Yeah, within about 6 turns, nothing really. So we're still miles away here. Andrew, I like denying the Zacian, the draw, the Intrepid Sword. That's pretty good. You take the prizes that are available, use the Boss's Orders while it's there. We don't see a Great Ball here. Not for any target that he wants. He can Professor's Research, drawing into a fresh 7 here. Needs to find Switch Out, otherwise you give up the easy 3-prize knockouts. And you want to start poisoning again. You want to just put some pressure into this Zamazenta.
Yeah, I feel like there was one turn where Andrew really was in a decent position to potentially pull it out. And it was that turn where he got the Zamazenta essentially into range. And it was just, I feel like if Alan had just whiffed that Mallow and Lana for one turn, things could have been so much different. But Andrew now, he hit the Professor's Research, back down to a 1-card hand with Reset Stamp. Eternatus goes down. And now Alan just needs 2 prizes to finish out and win this game. Probably not going to win next turn because Zamazenta really does not hit that much damage. And you know what? It doesn't really matter.
Andrew mulling over what to promote. He has free retreat on his Evil Towel, so that's always fine. You could see a Derail here, potentially get rid of an energy card from Zamazenta. You're hoping really that you can just run Alan out, but there's just so many cards remaining in his deck, and a lot of them are still energy and metal sources, so you basically never stop the Zamazenta from hitting you, unfortunately, but I think that's the only route you have at this stage.
No, I mean, he's got 3 energy and 2 metal saucer in hand. He is absolutely not shy of energy cards, and that's just what's in his hand, and Andrew knows how many he's playing, so Marnie is going to come down and give Alan a slightly smaller hand. The Derail is obviously going to be able to get rid of that coating metal energy. Maybe it slows him down for a turn, but no, we see it. Oh! That could have made things more interesting.
Yeah, there's still 2 Crushing Hammers rooting around Andrew's deck as well, so a few more discards in there and he'd have been in good shape. But yeah, missing the heads this time. The Derail now seems like a much worse prospect. You force Alan to have an energy in a 4-card hand, or a 5-card hand, I should say. But yeah, he's got loads of those. So he can just swing. You can also thin the deck with Tag Call now as well. It just gets rid of a Guzma and improves his draws for future turns.
Yeah, it's so difficult. Everything Andrew's trying is maybe, but it's just that the margins are so small. Maybe if I can Derail and hit a Crushing Hammer and Marnie him, and he doesn't draw energy for a little while and I can get a few free hits in. Maybe if I can hit with Crobat and Poison and he whiffs the Mallow and Lana for a couple of turns. There are routes to victory. It's not an unwinnable game. But Andrew's got to be thinking at some point during this game, like, if he didn't have metal goggles, I had the KO.
Could be a boss's orders derail play on the backup Zamazenta as an option here. You know that your Crobat can take a hit, so you can just retreat into that. You are losing to boss's orders at any point at this point, if you are Andrew's side. But I feel like just getting the swing in is really all you can do at this stage.
Yeah, you got to play it out. You got to do what you can do. Take a swing, hope. We don't see the boss's orders, so it is just a Venomous Fang. We see the poison damage coming in as well. There is still a chance that Andrew can really slow the game down, but now we see both the Zamazenta having the energy on. We see the Assault Tackle. And I think we might have got to that point where even the really slim, maybe chances that Andrew once had are disappearing.
Absolutely are, because now Andrew has to move out of this Crobat. He can't use it again, essentially, unless he's able to get 2 Crushing Hammer heads consecutively. And yeah, he doesn't really have any more time that he can buy with any of his other Pokemon. He could just send in other Crobats to take hits for a couple of turns, but that's not really helping him in his goal here, apart from 1 damage tick of poison.
No, unfortunately, it really isn't looking very good. And we do see the Crobat coming in to buy that turn and get that tick of poison. But, oh, still no. So the game isn't over yet. We are seeing Birdkeeper. And this is what we were saying a minute ago. Like, he can, if he wants to, just attack into every Pokemon until there is nothing left that can take a hit. That is a slow and laborious route to victory, but it's a route to victory. But it turns out he did actually draw the boss's orders off of the Birdkeeper, so I don't think this game's got very long to go. And it doesn't. Andrew looks like he has conceded, and the heavy favourite...